Hello everyone, welcome to our PMP Exam Questions and Answers solving session for January. So just like the previous months, in today's session, we'll be solving some medium to high difficulty level PMP exam questions very similar to your actual exam. Also, if you have not watched the previous Q&A sessions, I would highly encourage you to check them out, okay? I'm sure that you will find them immensely helpful for your PMP exam preparation. I will link the entire playlist in the description section of this video.
Also, if you are preparing for your PMP exam in 2024, I would recommend that you register for my free webinar for the PMP exam preparation. Okay, it's a detailed webinar which I host every week, where I take students like you through the basic steps of preparing for the PMP exam successfully. Okay, so I have multiple slots that are available every week. So feel free to choose from the slot that works best for you. Okay, the link will be in the description section of this video. In addition to this, you can download this free ebook, which is the 10 tips to pass the PMP exam in 2024 from my website as well. Okay, so all these resources are free resources to help you kickstart your PMP exam preparation in 2024. I'll be providing all the links in the description section of this video. So make sure you check them out.
Now, if you are preparing for the PMP exam, you can use today's class to assess how well you are prepared for the exam. Okay. So out of the 5 questions that we'll be solving today, the target would be to get all the 5 out of 5 questions correct, right? However, the minimum expectation is that you should get at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct to consider yourself fairly well prepared for the PMP exam. Now, anything less than that, you might need a bit more preparation, okay? So give this video a like, get a pen and a paper, and let's get started with question number 1.
Okay, so question number 1, guys. Please read the question and try to answer it before we solve this together. Okay, you can pause the video here if you wish to. Right, so let's get started. During a backlog preparation process, the product owner finds out that most of the team members are not trained in the best practices of Agile way of working. Okay, so I'm hopeful that if you have started your preparation already for the PMP exam, you know what a backlog preparation process is. Okay, right, so let's move on. This is causing incorrect story point estimates, reworks, and lack of morale within the team. Okay, what should be the most appropriate step for the product owner to resolve this? Okay, so to summarize, during a backlog preparation process, the product owner finds out that many of the team members, they are like sort of not trained in the best practices of Agile way of working. Okay, now this is causing incorrect story point estimates, reworks, and a lack of morale within the team. Okay, and which is definitely impacting the performance. Okay, so what should be the most appropriate step the product owner can take in this situation? So let's look at the options one by one. Option A, review the team charter and explore opportunities to hire additional team members of the required skill set. Okay, you can park this option for now. You might argue that, okay, so if I am lacking skills in my current team, I might hire additional team members externally to meet those skill gaps, right? Okay, so is that a valid logic? We'll see. Okay, let's hold this option for now. Option B, review the risk funds for the project and organize an agile training for the team. Okay, now this is also a good option. It is basically telling you that, look, as a product owner, you can check with the project manager, review the risk funds for the project, and see that if there are any, let's say, risk funds that are available to fund some training for the project team to get them trained in the Agile way of working. Okay, it's a sensible approach, but let's hold this option for now as well. Let's look at option C. Initiate a spike ceremony within the team to brainstorm the best way forward. Okay, now to understand and evaluate this option, you need to understand what is a spike ceremony. Okay, so please go back and watch my previous Q&A videos where I have discussed in detail about such concepts of Agile such as spikes, sprints, backlog preparation, backlog refinement, etc. etc. Okay, now to summarize, a spike ceremony is generally done within a team when there is a brainstorming that is required to troubleshoot troubleshoot, or let's say to identify the way of working for a user story or a feature. Okay, spike ceremonies are generally not used within a team who is already lacking the basic skills of Agile. Okay, because to enable a successful spike, you need trained team members within that spike ceremony. Okay, but in this situation, if you see, the problem is your team is not at all trained at the moment to contribute in a valuable way to the spike if you organize that. Okay, so that way this option is incorrect as of now, because a spike ceremony with an inexperienced team who is already lacking the best practices of Agile is not a good approach. Okay, so we can eliminate this option, which is option C. Let's look at option D. Hire the cheapest available training institute to organize a training for the team. Okay, I hope none of you selected this option, guys, because hiring the cheapest available training institute, okay, I not really quite like this phrase, okay, cheapest available training institute. That doesn't mean any value to the organization or to the team which you are bringing as a product owner, or let's say the project manager. Okay, so the cheapest alternative might not always be the best alternative which you bring as a product owner to the team. Okay, so always see the value aspect of it and not only the cost, or let's say the schedule aspect of it when you are driving a decision in a project. Let's say an agile project or waterfall project or a hybrid project, whatever the case may be. Okay, so option D is definitely out of the table. So we'll come back to option A and option B. Okay, now if you look at option A very closely, guys, what it's saying is you are to review the team charter, and that is okay to explore the opportunities to hire additional team members. Okay, now the point is see the morale which you will be creating as a product owner when you do this step. Okay, so two things will happen. Number one, your existing team members, they will think that, okay, since we are not skilled enough to contribute to the project, the product owner is bringing additional team members in the team to do our work. Okay, so what will we do? Okay, what will be our capacity utilization? Okay, so are we adding any value to the project with the skills that we have? Now, if that happens, guys, there is a high probability that your existing team members will become very passive, right? Because they will think that, okay, since I am not having the skills, my project manager or my product owner is getting external people to get my work done. So I will sit, chill, and relax, right? So that is not basically the type of culture you are planning to promote within your organization or within your team. So that's the first problem. And the second problem with this option is if you are planning to hire additional team members of the required skill set, this will not come for free, right? I hope you understand that. So this will incur additional costs. Now, whether these costs can be absorbed within the project, cannot be absorbed within the project, that's a second level of discussion. Okay, but that should not be your primary approach in terms of tackling this situation, because that way you will send a very wrong signal to the project team members, your existing project team members, and they will start to feel that if they lack some capability, instead of developing that capability within them, the project manager or the product owner goes and finds alternate resources to get the work done. Okay, so that way your team members will start to feel that they are not the priority, okay, in terms of contributing to the project, and in every situation the project deliverables take the priority. So that is basically not a servant leadership kind of approach which you generally want to promote in a team as a product owner or as a project manager. Okay, so that is the reason option A is incorrect, for two reasons. Number one, it might incur high costs. Okay, that needs to be considered. That is the secondary aspect anyways, but the primary aspect is, as a servant leader or as a project manager, hiring additional team members will impact the morale of your team even more, because they will feel that sense of abandonment or that sense of disrespect, that if there is a lack of skill which they have, instead of developing the capability within them, the project manager or the product owner always seeks help from outside the organization or the team. Okay, so that is not something which you plan to promote within your team. So that is why option A is incorrect, and the correct answer to this question is option B, which is to review the risk funds. Okay, now these risk funds can be the contingency funds within your project, and if possible you need to organize an agile training for the team. So that way you are always giving that positive signal to the team that, look, I understand that you guys are not skilled enough, but it is my job as a product owner to organize the right training for you to help you succeed in your role. And if you succeed, of course, the project will see success as well. Okay, and that is how a project manager, or let's say a servant leader, thinks when they lead a team in a project. Okay, so the correct answer to this question is option B.
If you are preparing for your PMP exam, guys, I would suggest that you check out my PMP exam preparation courses on Udemy. All the courses are very highly rated amongst the students, and many PMP aspirants like you have passed their PMP exam with the help of these courses. All the links will be provided in the description section of this video. And now let's move on to question number 2.
Question number 2, guys. This is the scenario. That's the question stem. These are the 4 options. Please try to answer it before we solve this together. You can pause the video here if you wish to. Okay, so basically the drill will remain the same. Right, so let's get started. The project manager and the product owner just came out of a stakeholder review meeting, which proved to be quite intense, which means quite a heated argument they had in the stakeholder review meeting. Okay. Few of the stakeholders mentioned that they will not be approving the iterations deliverable. Okay, seems like a threat. All right. The rest were nonchalant. Okay, now an exercise for you. Let me know in the comment section below what nonchalant means. Okay, so that's the word of the day today. Okay, towards the business value proposition. What should the project manager and the product owner do? All right, so the 4 options are A, B, C, and D. So let's look at the options one by one. But just to summarize the scenario here, there is a team meeting that has happened. Okay, and the project manager and the product owner has been given very strong feedback. Maybe that's why the meeting has been quite intense. So there has been a lot of feedback sharing to and fro. Few of the stakeholders even threatened that they will not be approving the iterations deliverable, and the rest were nonchalant. Okay, so basically, guys, nonchalant means indifferent. Okay, nonchalant is indifferent towards the business value proposition. Okay, so what should the project manager and the product owner do in this situation? Okay, let's look at the options one by one. Option A, raise a recommendation report to the project sponsor to reassign the stakeholders to other projects. Okay, so now these kind of options should always start ringing bells in your mind. Okay, reporting something to project sponsor is an escalation, and as a good project manager or a good product owner, you should always avoid that as your first step. Okay, escalation is not the first step of any issue resolution. Okay, now if you do something which is mentioned in option A, which is to raise a recommendation report to the project sponsor to reassign the stakeholders, first of all, that is escalation, and secondly, what you are saying is, okay, see, I don't like these stakeholders, they are causing problems in my project, please reassign them to another project. So now that's very childish, guys, right? So these kind of situations doesn't happen in a corporate world, and that way, as a project manager, what kind of an impression you are giving to the project sponsor? You are saying that, look, I'm not able to manage my stakeholders, please take them away and give me someone with whom I am able to work with. Okay, so now that is not something that's quite political, and that's quite professional as well. Okay, so first of all, escalation, and secondly, reassigning the stakeholders to other project might not be a feasible option in a corporate scenario. Okay, so that is why option A is incorrect. Let's look at option B. Meet with the project team and include whatever is needed to keep the stakeholders satisfied. Okay, now that is also incorrect, guys, because that way the kind of impression you will give to the stakeholders that whatever noise they can create in the system, they can always get their point through. Okay, whether it's logical, illogical, doesn't matter. If they raise their voice, if they start to threaten, if they do not behave cooperatively in any sprint review meeting, or let's say the stakeholder review meeting that is happening here, they can still get away with it if they are able to corner the project manager or the product owner. So these are the situations in a project where you should really put your feet on the ground, okay, and stand by the right cause. Okay, so whatever reasoning they are providing, whatever logic they are giving, whatever, let's say, iteration suggestions they are suggesting, okay, it might be okay if it follows the right logic and reason. Okay, but if they try to push something which is illogical or unreasonable, you as the project manager or the product owner have every right to decline that on solid grounds. Okay, so what option B is telling is not a good idea, that once you have received that threatening, or let's say received that feedback from the stakeholders, you come and put everything on your project team and include whatever is needed to keep the stakeholders satisfied. You can save the day today, but tomorrow what will happen? They will come back with 3-4 additional requests, right, out of thin air. Okay, which will not make any sense to you as a project manager or to you as the product owner. Then what you will do? Okay, so don't create that kind of a precedence in a project where you are perceived as a person who can be, let's say, arm twisted, or who tends to buckle in a pressure cooker type of situation. Okay, and that is what makes a strong project manager or a strong product owner. Okay, so that is why option B is definitely incorrect. Let's look at option C. review the iteration backlog with the stakeholders and redefine the definition of done. Now we are talking, right? So this is something which is very reasonable, that you are saying that, look, I understand that you guys are not happy with what we have done, but let's sit together, review the iteration backlog. So that backlog review will give us the details in terms of what were the features that were planned to be delivered in that iteration and what were the definition of done. Okay. And by definition of done, we mean that what were the success metrics to validate the scope which was delivered. Okay. In simple terms. Now let's sit together, understand if there is some gaps, whatever reasonably is possible, we will of course try to implement it. Now this can come with a schedule impact, cost impact, so that needs to be discussed separately. But at least we'll be on the same page in terms of the overall scope that we are trying to address as part of this iteration. Okay, and that will only happen if we proactively sit together with a solution oriented mindset. Okay, not a problem oriented mindset, a solution oriented mindset, to review the iteration backlog and come up and redefine the definition of done where it is needed. Okay, so option C seems like a very good option. Let's hold this for now. Let's look at option D, request private meetings with each of the stakeholders and influence them personally. Okay, outrightly incorrect, right? Requesting private meetings, influence them personally. Honestly, I don't know what you are going to do in that private meeting with that stakeholders, right? Now I leave that to the project manager and the product owner. But anyways, in a corporate scenario, coming back to this scenario that has been provided in this question, requesting private meetings, trying to influence stakeholders personally, these are not like servant leadership kind of behavior. These are more, let's say, dictatorial or authoritative kind of leadership, which are not promoted by a PMP style project manager. Okay, so that is why option D is also incorrect. And the correct answer to this question is option C.
If you are liking the video, guys, please press the like button. Your support goes a long way to help this channel grow. Also, your likes and comments help me to understand that you value such educational content and motivates me to prepare more such videos like these to help you with your PMP exam. And now let's move on to question number 3.
Okay, so question number 3, guys, read the question and try to answer it before we solve this together. Okay, so the drill will remain the same. You can pause the video here if you wish to. Right, so let's get started. A project manager receives feedback from the project management organization for not being able to deliver a minimum viable product feature on time. Okay, so PMO is project management organization. In your PMP exam, do not expect PMI to explain these terms, which are very, let's say, common abbreviations which are used across PMBOK 7 and the process group practice guide. So PMO is project management organization, EEF is enterprise environmental factors, OPAs are organizational process assets. So these are very common abbreviations which are used throughout the PMBOK and the process group practice guides. Okay, so please learn these abbreviations, and in your PMP exam, do not get surprised if you get these abbreviations as part of your question or your answer choices. Okay, so let's go back to the question. Upon root causing, it was identified that the Agile team lacked some specific knowledge to develop the feature. Okay, right. So what's happening here is, you as a project manager, you are getting feedback from your PMO, or let's say from your sponsor, okay, who is also part of your project management organization, that you are not able to deliver a minimum viable product feature on time. So these are like prototypes. Okay, so these minimum viable product features are generally used in an incremental project life cycle, where you deliver something called as a MVP at the very beginning, which is a minimum version of the workable product that the client wants to see, and then you refine it to match the requirements, okay, as the project progresses. So obviously, in this scenario, the project manager is delayed in terms of delivering that minimum viable product, and upon root causing, it was identified that the Agile team lacked some specific knowledge to develop that feature. So basically a skill gap that existed within the Agile team. How could the project manager mitigate this risk for future deliverables? Okay, very important phrase for you to take note of. Okay, it is not saying that how could the project manager salvage the situation in this project at the moment. Okay, it is asking for some systemic fix that needs to be applied so that these kind of situations doesn't happen in future projects or future sprints or future iterations. Okay, so very important. The way you will be reacting or responding to a situation to manage something within a project is very different from the way you will be root causing it and building systemic fixes so that it doesn't happen in future for the sprints or the iterations that are yet to happen. So the first scenario calls for an immediate fix and the second scenario calls for a systemic fix. Okay, so let's look at the options one by one. Option A, plan for all trainings to be completed at the beginning of the project. Okay, incorrect, right? So this is like very theoretical, that completing all the trainings, it may not be feasible for you as a project manager. Otherwise your initiation and planning stage will go into training sessions. Okay, whatever is required, whatever is not required, so it's no one size fits all, right? So you need to organize only the trainings that are relevant and that will give the capability to your team members to perform at their best in a project. Okay, organizing all trainings to be completed at the beginning of the project, that is not something which is sensible, and also that is not something which is productive for you as a project manager to organize. Okay, so that is why option A is definitely incorrect. Let's look at option B, empower the team members to become self-sufficient. Okay, I like this option, empowering the team member. That is talking about servant leadership and finding training opportunities themselves. Oops. Okay, now this is funny. It's saying that, okay, as a good project manager, you empower the team members to become self-sufficient and find training opportunities themselves. Okay, so that doesn't like fit too well, right? You have to empower them, but also as a good project manager, you should enable or help them to find good training opportunities. You should not like be passive and say that, okay, you guys are now empowered from today, please go and find some good trainings and get it done. Okay, so send the bills to me and I'll arrange for payment. So that doesn't happen like that, right? So you as a project manager need to take involvement, need to be involved, need to feel connected with your team members, see their problem as your problem as well. That is empowerment for sure. And you should take active steps in terms of finding the right training opportunities for them. Okay, that should not basically be a DIY or do it yourself exercise. Okay, so that is not promoting good servant leadership behavior. So that is why option B is also incorrect. Let's look at option C. Organize a focus group to list the required skills and charter the team accordingly. Okay, so that's a fair option. So it's saying that organize a focus group. So you call all your team members in a focus group in a meeting to list the required skills, okay, which will be applicable to the project or to the iteration that you are developing, and then you charter the team accordingly. Okay, I hope you know what are the T-shaped individuals and what are the I-shaped individuals in an agile project, right? If you don't know that, please go and watch my previous monthly Q&A videos where I have done detailed discussion on these types of personalities in agile project. So a good project team should have a good distribution of T-shaped and I-shaped individuals, okay? Because both of these type of individuals comes with specific skills and specific knowledge to help the project team. So it has to have a good mix. So what you are doing in option C is you are organizing a focus group to list the required skills and chartering the team accordingly to see that, okay, if there is a shortage of I-shaped individuals, I'll see that how I can get the additional skills. So can I train my team or should I bring external resources? That's the second level of discussion, but at least you know your current situation in terms of the skill matrix of your team. So option C looks a good choice, but let's look if there are any better options that exist. Let's look at option D. Hire external freelancers, okay, to fill the skill gaps that exist within the team. Okay, and this is what I was saying, guys. Do not jump steps when you are selecting options in your PMP exam. Now, this option D has two very critical issues for which I'll not be able to accept it. Number one, hiring external freelancers may come with a cost. So you need to understand and you need to plan those costs in your project team. Okay, so hiring will not come for free, right? That's the first problem. And secondly, hiring external freelancers to fill the skill gaps will do what? Go back to question number one, will again send that signal to your existing project team that if there is a skill gap, my project manager wants to hire someone externally to get that done. And my skill building and my knowledge and my upliftment is not the priority of the project manager. Okay, so that is not something you are willing to communicate to your project team members. Okay, so hiring external freelancers in short term is okay, but in long term, okay, when we are talking of what? When we are talking of future deliverables. So we are talking about something as a systemic fix here, right? So we are not talking about damage control, or we are not talking about something we should fix at this iteration or within this sprint, right? If we would have been talking that, maybe option D would have been correct. Okay, I'm not debating that fact. But since the question stem is talking about how could the project manager mitigate the risk for future deliverables, it is always a good idea to do an assessment of the skill metrics of your existing team members and then plan trainings or hire external freelancers or get some additional members from a different department, etc., etc. So those are basically actions that will happen in the second leg of your problem resolution. Okay, so the first step of any problem resolution is to identify the baseline or identify the current situation of the problem, right? So that is why option D is incorrect, and the correct answer to this question is option C, which is to organize a focus group to list the required skills and charter the team accordingly, because that will help in future. Okay, very important, in future, to prevent such kind of problems in your agile sprint.
If you are finding this practice session helpful, guys, make sure you subscribe to my channel PMP with Ray for more such videos for your PMP exam preparation, okay? Subscribing to this channel doesn't cost you anything, but it really helps with extending the reach of this channel to other PMP aspirants like you. And now let's move on to question number 4.
Right, so let's move on to question number 4. This is the question, that's the question stem. 4 options. Please select the one which you think is the best option for this question. Okay, you can pause the video here if you wish to. Right, so let's get started. The client has requested a new feature to be included within the product. Okay, the project manager and the product owner are made cognizant about this during a sprint review meeting. So basically a change, right? So the client has requested a change, which is a new feature to be included within the product, and this was discussed in a sprint review meeting. What should be the most appropriate step for the project manager? Okay, so looks a pretty straightforward question. Let's look at the options one by one. Plan to develop those features in line with the client request. Incorrect, right? Because still you are not evaluating the problems, or let's say the impact the change will have. You cannot basically go and start implementing that. Okay, so that is totally against the perform integrated change control process of project management. So option A is definitely incorrect and out of the table. Let's look at option B. Perform an impact analysis. Okay, so that's good, with the product owner and communicate the best approach to the team. Okay, let's hold this option for now. So what it is saying is you perform an impact analysis, which is definitely in line with the perform integrated change control. So basically what you are doing a triple constraint analysis with the product owner and communicate the best approach to the team. Right, let's hold this option for now. Let's look at option C. Review the organization's OPAs, which are organizational process assets. I think we were talking about this, that these are like common abbreviations, which you will find in your PMP exam as well. So please make yourself cognizant about this. And EEFs, which are enterprise environmental factors, and check for precedents and case studies. Okay, so this is a bit of intellectualization, right? That a problem has happened and you should be solving it. Of course, you can go and review those OPAs and EEFs to check for precedents and case studies. That will give you some learning, but is it like an active way of problem solving? Okay, that whenever you are faced with a problem, you go to the book and start looking at references, okay, or start looking at precedences. Now you don't know what was the background of that issue, whether that background is very similar to what you are facing or not. Now I'm not saying that is incorrect, but is that preferable, or is it like the best choice that we can have as part of these 4 options that has been provided? Because it is very important in your PMP exam, guys, to select not the right option but the best option possible. So there can be one option which is right, there can be another option which is right as well. Okay, but what you need to do is, as a prudent exam taker, you need to select the best available option in line with the guidelines and principles of project management as per the PMB. Okay, right? Now looks like option C I can safely eliminate, because this is not a preferable option for me. I'm not saying that that is incorrect, but that is not preferable for me, because that is a passive way of problem solving. Checking for precedences and case studies, I think I should have better options than this. Okay, let's look at option D. coach the team to decide on the appropriate approach and align the same with the stakeholders. Okay, so this is also a good option, right? So what you are saying is during a situation where you have a change that has been suggested, you coach the team to decide on the appropriate approach, which should be in line with the perform integrated change control approach. Okay, now please come out of that myth that agile projects doesn't have integrated change control or doesn't have change control. That's a myth, guys. Agile projects do have change control. The only difference of that change control versus waterfall projects is that in waterfall project, the PICC is much more formal, much more structured. There is a change control board, etc., etc. In agile, it is still there, but it is much more flexible, much more agile, much more quick. Okay, but there has to be a system to track and manage changes. You cannot do any project without a system of tracking and managing changes. Okay, so that's a myth. Please come out of that myth. Okay, agile projects do have change control, okay, or do have change management that happens within them. So let's come back to option D. Coach the team to decide on appropriate action, okay, appropriate approach, and align the same with the stakeholders. This also looks a good option, but let's see out of option B and option D, which is the best option. Okay, both of the options seem correct, right? And as I was telling, your job as a good exam taker is to identify the best option, because you will be finding in your PMP exam multiple times that there will be like 2 or 3 options which looks like correct or which looks like feasible approaches. Okay, but you need to do that acid test and come to a best possible or the best probable answer choice. Okay, now, okay, option A was incorrect. We have eliminated that. Option C, we have eliminated that. Now let's look at option B once again. Perform an impact analysis, which is okay, and that is in line with the perform integrated change control with the product owner and communicate the best approach to the team. Now, where is the team in this impact analysis? So what it is saying is you as the project manager, you perform the impact analysis with the product owner. Okay, and that is you and the product owner. And then you just communicate that to the team. Now, is that a good approach? Honestly, I don't think so, right? Because if you are not involving the team in that impact analysis, and if you and the product owner are sitting in a closed room and you guys are deciding upon a best approach and then just communicating that to the team, then what is the impression you are giving to the team, right? That they are redundant. They will always sit back and relax and think that, okay, whatever problem is there, my product owner and my project manager will solve that, and they will give the decision to us and we'll just implement it. So they will become more reactive. They will stop taking ownership. Okay, so that is why option B doesn't look like a very good option to me. I would prefer option D, because what it's saying is coaching the team, and this word of coaching is very important because that's very in line with the servant leadership principles to decide on the appropriate approach. Okay, so you are enabling the team to decide on the appropriate approach. So that enablement might come through our impact analysis. That enabling process might come through, let's say, any kind of simulations which you want to do with your team to arrive at the different impact levels, etc., etc. And then you coach them to align the same with the stakeholders as well. Okay, so that looks like a much more holistic and a much more reasonable option to me, rather than option B, because in option B, it is basically saying that you perform an impact analysis with the product owner, and that means it's you as a project manager with the product owner, and basically you do not involve the team and then just communicate, right, the best approach to the team. That doesn't make any sense to me, guys. Okay, so you need to learn to read between these lines, okay, like what we have done in this question, to do that final acid test of eliminating between two very close answer choices. Okay, so option B fails that acid test, and that is why option B is incorrect. And the correct answer to this question is option D, which is to coach the team to decide on the appropriate approach and align the same with the stakeholders. Now, you might question that, Ray, is it 100% correct? Is this option the best possible option for this scenario? May not be true, right? I'm not saying that this option D is 100% correct option. Okay, I'm not saying that, guys. What I'm saying is, out of the 4 options that has been provided in this question, option D is the best possible answer choice. Okay, and that is how you should differentiate between a best possible answer choice and a not so best possible answer choice. Okay, and this is the skill which you need as a PMP exam aspirant to perform well in your PMP exam. Okay, option D might not be 100% correct as an answer choice, but it is the best possible answer choice I can select out of these 4 options, A, B, C, and D. And for that precise reason, option D is the correct answer choice for this question.
I hope you are finding this exercise helpful, right? Remember, the target is to get all the 5 out of 5 questions correct, okay? However, the minimum expectation is to get at least 4 out of the 5 questions correct. So here comes the fifth and the final question.
Right. So the fifth and the final question, guys. This is the scenario. That's the question stem. Please solve this question before we start solving this together. You can pause the video here if you wish to. Right, so let's get started. An architectural restoration project will require over hundreds of architects, civil engineers, paleontologists. So paleontologists are the experts who study fossils or study remnants out of a historical excavation site, okay? And historians working in a 200-acre site at a highly remote location. Okay, seems like a very interesting project to me. The project manager wants to implement a scalable approach. Okay, very important term for this question, scalable approach, which should enable an agile way of working combined with a traditional execution approach. So a lot of things are going on here in this question. Okay, so an architectural restoration project site, okay, it will require a lot of architects, a lot of civil engineers, paleontologists, historians, etc. And that project is happening in a 200-acre site at a highly remote location. Okay. Now the project manager wants to implement a scalable approach, okay, which should enable an agile way of working integrated with a waterfall approach, okay, which is a traditional execution approach. So basically a hybrid way of working, but that hybrid way should be scalable. Okay, so that is the very important takeaway from the scenario. It is not only a hybrid project, okay, or only a hybrid project methodology, I would say, but it has to be a methodology which should be hybrid. No doubt about that, but it should be scalable as well. What could be the most appropriate tailoring methodology in this situation? And the 4 options are Kanban, Crystal methods, feature driven development, again an abbreviation, so you need to be aware of what FDD is, and Scrum. Okay, right, so 4 options provided on the table for you. Now to answer this question correctly, guys, you need to understand the type of methodologies which these options are proposing. Okay, so what is a Kanban methodology, what are Crystal methods, what is a FDD, what is a Scrum, etc, etc. Now here I would recommend that you go to your Agile practice guide, okay, and you go to your page 100. Okay, you can open your Agile practice guide with me as we solve this question, and also you open your page 106 of the Agile practice guide. Now on page 100 of your Agile practice guide, you will find a chart which talks about the various Agile approaches, and it classifies them in terms of the breadth of the life cycle versus the depth of guidance. Okay, now I was not able to post a screenshot of that actual diagram here on a public video because that would have violated the copyright laws of PMI. Okay, so this is a representational figure which I have picked up, and that will help you to explain the basic premise which is needed to solve this question correctly. Okay, now if you go to that section, which is figure A 3.1, you will see that it classifies the Agile projects into 2 specific buckets. Okay, so the one specific bucket are the team methods. Okay, so basically XP, which is extreme programming, Kanban, Scrum, feature driven development, these are all team methods. Okay, because the team management is priority in these kind of agile methodologies. Okay, so these kind of agile project methodologies needs a lot of team involvement and team maturity. Okay, so you cannot do an XP with a team who has just started off agile, okay, maybe a year back. Okay, so that's the basic intent of classifying these kind of methodologies as team methods, because these calls for a lot of cohesive and coherent teamwork to make the project succeed using these kind of methodologies. And these kind of projects needs a high capability within the team to execute it properly. Okay, so that is why these kind of methodologies have been classified as team method. Okay, and all these methodologies such as XP, Scrum, Kanban, etc. has average depth of guidance and has average breadth of the life cycle of the project as well. Now the second type of approach is called the scaled approach, and here you will see Crystal, less, lean, and disciplined agile. Okay, so these are agile approaches which can start from a small team move on to a medium team, and move on to a larger team across globe. Okay, so these are agile approaches which can be scaled and which can be moved from a small prototype situation into a big organizational situation. Okay, or let's say big organizational scenario, to put the words correctly, right? So that is why these approaches are called scaled approaches. XP is not scalable. Kanban is not scalable. Scrum is not scalable. Feature driven development is not scalable. Okay, very important for you to understand that. Okay, so again, go back to the Agile Practice Guide and check these sections to help you get a better understanding of what we are discussing here. Now, if you have that understanding and if you have that basic rationale in terms of, okay, what is a scaled approach versus a non-scaled approach, this question can be answered in less than 30 seconds, right? So it is talking about a scalable approach, which is an agile and a waterfall inclusive, which is a hybrid approach. And the only option which satisfied scalability in a hybrid way of working is the crystal method. Okay, and that is why the correct answer to this question is option B. And if you go back to the chart, you will see that Kanban, feature driven development, and Scrum, which is Kanban, FDD, and Scrum, these are team methods. Okay, so these are not scalable methods of agile project management, and that is why it is of utmost importance for you in your PMP exam to get an understanding of these various types of agile methodologies. Now, mark my words, guys, nobody is asking you to become a PhD in terms of driving these kind of agile approaches in your project, but at least get the foundational knowledge for each of these terms and terminologies, so that at least whenever you are solving a question, you know what crystal is, you know what less is, you know what XP is. Okay, you know what disciplined agile is. Okay, so these kind of things. So at least please go back to your books, study those details to give you the basic foundational understanding of the various types of agile projects and how they are classified as scaled approaches versus non-scaled approaches. Okay, so that is the key learning which I wanted to deliver as a part of this question, and that is why I included this question as part of this month's Q&A session. So I think we all are on the same page now. So Kanban is incorrect because it's not scalable. FDD is incorrect, is not scalable. Scrum is incorrect, it's not scalable. And the correct answer to this question is option B, which are the crystal methods, because those methods are scalable methods in agile project management. And if you go back to the question scenario, it definitely asks for a scalable approach, which the project manager wants to implement in this architectural restoration project.
So that's the end of the quiz, guys. Let me know in the comment section below how much you were able to score. Okay, I'd be very interested to know that. Also, if you have scored less, don't get demotivated. Okay, you just need a bit more practice and a thorough analysis of your mistakes so that you get to know about your knowledge gaps. Now, to help you practice more and eventually get better, I am linking here the entire playlist of our monthly practice sessions for the PMP exam questions and answers. Please check if you have missed any of the monthly sessions and make sure you practice with me in those sessions as well. I'll see you there.